We live. Alright, y'all. This is a brand new, basically, Canam Outlander 860 actually motor. And upon finalizing it, we spun the crank by hand. Make sure all the clearances are good. They were, except for the water pump gear binded and chipped some teeth off. So we're going to disassemble the whole motor, and maybe y'all can learn from it if you need to learn from it. If not, well, we're going to do it live to show y'all this really ain't that hard to do. I don't know how much I'll be able to respond to comments, but we fixing to do it. Right to it. Right to it. Alright. Hey, babe. Would you be a doll and get my old sun hat?
Yeah.
My good hat. So basically with motors, like stuff like this, what we're going to do is go from the top down and tear it all down. Basically top down. And alright. Let's dig in. Oh, nice. That don't look like it fits you very well.
No, I have a little head.
Very nice, very nice. Alright, these are 10 mil. So the majority of the bolts on these engines are 8 millimeter, the little guys. And then thankfully, they keep everything to a certain size range, it seems, in metric. So these guys are for the intake manifold or whatever the hell you want to call this thing, 10 mil. Some of them you might need a wrench to get on because they're so close to the pipe. The other ones you can use a impact of sorts. I think there's only one you need to use a wrench on, it's this guy. Anyway. Take manifold off. I don't even want to call it manifold. Next, what we're going to do is take, I believe, a 6 millimeter. Nope, not 6. A something millimeter Allen bolt. And take our timing chain gears off.
Where did you buy the left-hand throttle?
The left-hand throttle is from Goldfinger, and that thing is sweet. And yes, it can go full throttle. I think it'll even work on models that aren't cable driven, because the way they use it. So the newer model bikes. You might have to create your own bracket, but it's possible. Majority of time disassembling stuff, I swear it comes from just looking for tools. Keep you here. Alright. That's right. There she go. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. The torque on these, I believe, is 22 foot-pounds on the cam 3 bolts. Once you pop them main bolts out, you can slide your chain off and take your gear out. The timing chain gears are ambidextrous, which means you can put them together and it doesn't matter. You don't have to do any kind of marking on them if you have a way to time it, which there's a tool you use to time these. Wherever the hell I left it. Last night was intense out here. We were in battle. I don't know, but if I find it, I'll have to show y'all. Alright, so next we're going to take the 4 main bolts out of the heads, which, thank God, they're brand new bolts, so I didn't Loctite them. And that's an 11 mil. You'd be better off with like a 12-point socket with the way these things are. And I do not have a 1/2 inch to 3/8 inch adapter anymore. But I might have an 11 mil 1/2 inch. Oh boy, there's a bunch of stuff I was looking for. Oh, thanks. So you shouldn't use a torque wrench to wrench, but you know, I'm trying to show y'all you can disassemble these fast. I don't know where the hell half my stuff is because we were in battle last night. Here's that cam timing tool I was talking about to set things to top dead center. So you bring your piston up to top dead center, you throw this over the head, and this little thing right here will grab the cam and put it in time. You just got to make sure it's all the way down. And you bolt it up. Alright, hopefully I can get these out by myself out here, because sometimes these things really like to get in there. Oh yeah, that ain't gonna be a problem. These head bolts, if you're putting them in, you really want to make sure you put some sort of lubrication under the top of the bolt, because it'll start removing material under the head of the bolt itself. It's got like a flange. The torque pattern on these head bolts is I think it's 15 pounds and then 44. And you're going to do a crisscross pattern with that when you're torquing them down. So once you get them all cracked loose, swap back to your impact. These little trays I found at Dollar General, they're like $1 a piece, so these are kind of great for holding parts. Let's see what we got in the comments. Oh, thanks TCM Outdoors. Yeah, Full Throttle Inc. is the company that sells the Goldfinger. Alright, so after you get the 4 main head bolts in, or out, there's going to be 2 little guys towards the outer side of where the timing chains are, down in there. And they got a, let's see, you can either use an 8mm socket or, well hell, this ain't even labeled, but I think it's a T35. I don't think it's a T40. You should be able to get those out with an impact. Like 2 on each side. Alright, once them is out, you should be able to pull your head off. Like that. We're going to set it aside. Nice flashy head gasket there. Sometimes the pins get kind of stuck on them, so you got to give them a little love. Beautiful Maverick heads. The cylinders should slide right off the pistons there's you could take these timing chain guides out. They just drop in. Alright, your cylinders are going to want to fuss a little bit, because I got new, well, on this because the rings are so tight, but it should slide off like that. It's one cylinder. You want to keep all this stuff separate so you remember where it came from and where it goes. Keep your gaskets with your gaskets. Keep your cylinders with your cylinders. If you have to label them, label them. If you can remember it, good for you. I sure as hell can't. So that's the rear. Right now I'm already questioning where I put what. I was going to need a new gasket because it tore, the base gasket. Right there. Alright, so now that we got the top half of this engine off, we're going to go ahead and pull the flywheel off. So we got to take this bolt out. This is important, and this is actually really easy to forget. And you will mess some shit up if you don't do this right. So you're going to take your stator side or magneto side bolt out. It's a 14 millimeter Allen key. You're going to want to be careful. You don't want anything to move. It's really good to use. See how strong that magnet is? It's really good to use an impact here because you don't want to make anything bind in here. The goal is to get it out by holding it, keep the crank from spinning. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to take out the main washer that goes to it. Once that washer is out, what you're going to do is take your bolt and put it back in. That bolt fits inside of this. This can slide off without that being in its business. Then you're going to take a flywheel puller, which has a reverse thread, and back out the puller side. You're not getting this off without doing this, by the way. So then you thread this on the flywheel puller. You're going to want to thread it on all them threads. Cool. I don't know what I just dropped, but it sounded like a lot of shit. So this is like I said, reverse thread. So you got to go lefty to tighten it. And the reason why you put that bolt back in there after taking the washer off is so this has something to pull on. If you don't do that, this will push into the threads on your crank, and you might have to tap and find a custom bolt to fix that. So take that washer off. Now this, I think a 21 millimeter socket fits over this perfectly. Not perfect, but it'll fit. It's 21, and remember, we're going in reverse. Alright, so it might scare you a little bit, but what that does is it breaks it off of the keyway. So now your magneto and one-way gear, this will only spin one way. So you can spin it this way, but you can't spin it that way. Now that's off. Alright, now you can go ahead and remove your timing chains. I'm gonna pop this little horseshoe looking thing off. That's one timing chain. Go ahead and take these gears out and take these pins out. Just, I know where these go, so if y'all are doing this at home, make sure you label everything. But I just happen to know where all these go because I've done this a few times. Alright, so you are going to have to take your starter off, and it should be one bolt, and I think it's a 10 mil. It's going to be one right on the back side, not a 10 mil. Well, actually, I think it is a 10 mil. I was just holding an 11. Yes, sir. It is a 10 mil. I lied. Might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it out, but she should come out. Go ahead and do yourselves a favor. Take that bolt and put it right back where you got it. Alright, so I just remembered something that is going to take a lot of time to do. It's the only thing that's going to take a lot of time to do, and that's getting the main through drive shaft out. And the reason why is because you RTV all the way around it. So when we go to split the case, that's I'm going to do that last. That's what's going to take the longest. The reason why you take your starter out is because it's between two cases, so you got to take it out. Now on the other side, on the forward end of the block, you have an oil cooler. You have to take your oil cooler off because you can't back out these case screws right here. So you can use, again, either a 8mm socket or a T35, I believe. It's T30. Yeah, T30. T30 or an 8mm. I pre-fill this with oil. It's an oil cooler. Another thing you're going to want to do with this is take the bolts that are in it and put them back in it, The reason why is because these are like the only bolts that are tiny out of the whole block. So when you throw them all in a bucket and you get down to the last bolts, you might try and put these in the oil filter housing bolts and be like, where the hell are the bolts for this? Oh, we got an Amazon truck. That's what's up. All right. What's we got?
No, well, set it on the truck so they can say I gave you your 6 feet. All right, dropping you out of prison. Hey, you too. Be safe, buddy.
Dang, this thing feels heavy. You got my name on it? Nope, sure don't. Ain't for me. So right here, these, they're siliconed in there pretty good. Those are going to be a pain in the ass to get out. How you know Amazon came here? You watching a live stream?
Of course.
Doggone. Alright, so on the side of the 4-wheel. Right there. Back onto this side. This gear right here is a water pump gear. It's got 2 missing teeth right there. For some reason, something inside the case binded and broke those teeth, so that's why we're disassembling this motor. I'm running out of little cubbies. So we'll have to order a new one of those. Just take these gears off, set them aside. That's your oil pump in there. And you will have to take this off because there's case bolts that kind of hide in there. Trying to get y'all's view just right. Alright, so they're brand new timing chains. They haven't been ran. So I'm not worried about them getting mixed up or nothing, because if they have some sort of weird wear in. Just go ahead and set those aside for now. You don't have to remove these guys. They don't get in the way of anything. And you don't have to remove this. It doesn't get in the way unless you're cleaning. If you're trying to like clean everything out, you gotta remove everything. Gonna remove this little circlip here. Old snap ring. Don't lose your snap rings. Done that before. This is the oil pump gear. There's a should just snap off. And we're going to take our pin. So next we'll start removing all of our case bolts on this side, on the inside of the motor. There's going to be a few that are up in there. That being one of them, and one being in here. So the reason again why we're disassembling this engine is because something in here is binding when the crank turns and it's in between the case. So in order to tell, I could stick a borescope in here now and look, but that won't help me fix it. So I'm just going to take it apart. Sometimes it's faster just to do than sit there and think. And, you know, it's not going to hurt nothing taking this all apart. All right, so let's see. There's 4 main bolts on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're bigger than the rest. Gonna take a wild guess that they're a 10 mil. That'll work. Or a T45, I believe. Switch back, and all right, we got all the inside case bolts out of here. Yep. So then there's going to be a bunch on the bottom, 4 on the bottom. And there's a few that go up the side. Most of these bolts, Canam was nice enough to keep the same size, so you really can throw them in a pile. These 2 are the only ones that are really short. And you had to remove your oil cooler to get to them because you wouldn't be able to back them out. You can get a wrench on them, but they ain't going to back out if the oil cooler's there. All right. That's one side of the case done. Now, the hard part is here, I believe. I think they're all fastened from that side. They are. Okay, so now it is on to the pain in the butt part. The pain in the butt part is when you RTV these back in, their sleeve goes in like an inch. So it's a hell of a fight getting them back out. Yeah, you like that custom bolt? Had to tap and put me in a custom bolt there. So sure, it's gonna be easy getting the bolts out and stuff. Hang on, I just was alarmed. Sorry, joining late. Does the engine have a failure, or is it just a tear down to explore? Shane, the engine does have a failure. It was on build. We finalized everything last night, spun the crank over by hand to make sure that all the clearances were good. You know, we did that throughout the process, but this water pump gear right here everything was together, so we can't see it. Something binded, and I was like, well, it's new piston rings, so, and I have the spark plugs in, which can create the compression. So I gave it a little more juice, and something popped free, and the crank spun freely. So we had to start tearing down. Upon investigation, this water pump gear right here is missing teeth. Now, I pushed it back into place and spun the crank over to watch it, and it shot out. And something inside the case is binding. So we got to take the case apart to find out what's causing the binding and repair what needs to be repaired. That's an 11. Whew, good luck finding an 11 around here. 14. That's going to be a pain in the butt. Alright, so just for a minute. We're going to go ahead and work on this side while I think real hard about where that number 11 wrench is. So technically the case is pretty much free. The only thing really holding it up right now is the through shaft. These boys are in there. And these boys don't like coming out. So this might get physical. Oh, I might get lucky today. We might be getting lucky today. Oh, we're lucky today. I don't think the RTV fully set up. Yeah. Perfect. That's what I wanted. So this is one side, this is the back side. And the way to remember is this side can come off, but the front side can't come off unless you take that off. And I'm talking about the bearing and seal. Now let's find that 11 mil and crack this case open and see what went wrong. You know how many 10 millimeter wrenches I got? A lot. But I can't find a single 11 when it matters the most. That seems to kind of be the story of all our lives, I think. Oh, got a 14 and a 12. Getting close. I can feel it. Unfortunately, it has to be a wrench because I can't get a socket on there. It won't, the face of that aluminum cover is too deep, so it won't reach. Or it's protruding out too much. Oh boy. Imagine being hindered by one wrench. That's us right now. Got 15. All right, we got an 11. Let's just hope this side comes off as easy as the other side. When that stuff fully hardens, it don't like to play ball. So what happened here was the bolt pulled the threads, so I had to tap it. I ran to Home Depot and got this here bolt. Oh boy, we might be in Schitt's Creek here soon. I might have to do some special stuff. God dang, gotta pour the coals to her. Oh, there she goes. She's working with us now. That's it. Don't ask me how I torqued that, because I ain't gonna tell you. What's up, babe?
Get another comment.
Oh. Let's see the comments here. Sorry, guys. I'm just in work mode. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate that. Looks like Chris got some wild hair. I told him, no, I got this. It won't take but an hour to disassemble this whole thing. He said, no, I'm on my way. I got your pry bar. I think he just wants to hang out, have some fun. Alright, so what we're doing is we're turning this out just enough to get a socket on it. It's just got to pass the face of this. I mean, everybody here is probably inclined enough to know what that entails. And okay. Now we're on the hunt for an 11 mil. That's 12. That's 10. By golly, I'm going to pull it out by hand. I ain't fighting it. If y'all got big stubby fingers like me, it's kind of hard to get in these spots. I'm just really hoping this pulls off easy, because that's it. Once that's off, you split the case, pull the crank, set the crank aside, and you're done. I just have that 11 mil socket too. That's what's aggravating me right now. When you're in the heat of battle and all your tools are going everywhere, it's like 2 a.m. or whatever, you don't put your tools up, you bite the bullet the next day, and you gotta do shit by hand like this. Alright. Shotty's out. Let's hope this side goes a lot easier than it has for me in the past. I'm thinking it might. Oh, it will. Cool. Well, we're not out the gate yet. All right. There's little tabs on these. Sorry if my arm is blocking the view, but if you can get behind these tabs, that's the most ideal situation for you. If you hear that RTV starting to split, just start pouring the coals, baby, because she's going to come loose. You just got to give it to her. There she goes. That's it. She out. You can leave that there because you're not going to pull that shaft through. Now all we got to do is create some room. When you're working on things like this, you want to try and think a few steps ahead. So right now, because we're going to split the case for y'all, what I'm thinking about is when I pull that crank out, I want to be very careful on the bearings, because there are teeth on these, and I don't want them to scratch, and I only got one set of hands here. So what I'm going to do is get a spot prepared to lay that crank, because I don't have that, and I'd be sitting there with my fingers in my butt if I didn't, you know, be sitting there with my hands full if I didn't secure a place for it to lay down. Alright. So temporarily, we're going to stick it on this. So there's a engine mount point right up top. I'm just going to start prying there. Damn, that gasket stuff really holds up good. Now I'm going to take me, I split the seal apart basically. I'm going to take me a flathead, try and keep it wedged in there like that. And you just start working that gap on one side. Now I'm going to go on this side and do it. And that's it. Now we're splitting the case. Alright, so like I said, that through shaft can stay right where it's at. I'm going to attempt to take the crank out and pistons out with me with the PTO side. So I'm just going to grab, because I got more leverage on this crank here. But what's going to happen is these pistons are going to want to just go flop. So I'm going to take my other hand I got. Too bad us humans didn't get like 30 hands here. Make sure that bottom's wanting to split. Should be able to take one side completely off. Like that. Like I said, these pistons are going to want to drop, so that's one side of the case. So I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to hold these pistons by the rods, which are covered in assembly lube, so it makes it easy to hold. Just like that, pull the crank out. This is the gear that I had some suspicions about, so that's what we'll be investigating. Crank's out, I'm going to set that aside. Take the third foot shaft out. Alright, now we can do our investigating. That is how you completely tear down a Canam Gen 2 motor from 570 to 1000. The cases are all the same. Alright, let's get a better angle on this. I don't see any teeth broken off first glance. On that gear right there, I don't see any teeth broken off, but it does feel rough. So might have to figure out. I am seeing some rust though. That is the water pump, but that should be oiled, and there's seals to keep it from going bad. Alright, so that's out. We'll clean that up real nice. Try and keep the washer with it. Maybe not, who knows. I don't see any teeth broken off that gear. The other gear is right over here. And that's this guy. I want to keep those washers with it. And I don't see any teeth broken off this one. So as to why it's binding, I don't have a clue. I really don't. I'm going to replace all the water pump shaft components and whatnot, just because there was a little surface rust. I mean, you could sand that down and throw it right back in. It'd probably last you 100 years, but I'm just going to do it because something in there is binding. So that's it, guys. That is how to completely tear down a Canam Outlander or Renegade Gen 2 motor. And Gen 2 just means newer bikes. So I'll have to clean all this gasket off, get new gaskets, and investigate further what had happened. What had happened was, I'm going to have to investigate further on the what had happened was, and that'll pretty much be it. For those of you that just joined, this video will be on my page so you can watch it from the start, and I give you tool sizes and those knowledges so that you can do it yourself if you must. And to reiterate, the failure was a water pump gear that had stripped. And if you're looking at all that red stuff, that's assembly lube, so you don't gotta, it's not oil. I mean, it is oil, but that's just when you're newly assembling stuff, use assembly lube. All right, guys. Don't be afraid to try new things. Take your time. And yeah, let's see if I can get my face in this thing. Woo! Last night we were in the heat of battle with this thing. We got it done. Went to hand crank it over to check all the clearances, valve clearances, and piston clearances to things. And it binded, so figuring because the piston rings are brand new, they're not worn in yet. You get a lot of compression. So I figured it was just the compression stroke. No, it wasn't. What in the world is on my eyelid? Growing stuff now? Growing grease? That's cool. Alright, it's gone. So we went ahead and I cranked it a little harder and heard something pop. Knew what that meant. Started investigating. Decided that the best thing to do is pull it all back apart. It don't take long to do it. Takes a lot longer to put it back together though. But so far in the investigation, don't know what had actually went wrong with it. Hey, Chris is here. TCM Outdoors. Cool. Well, all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the live stream. I plan on doing a lot more, especially when it comes to working on things. And if you guys have any questions with your motors or you're not sure how to do something, feel free to comment on one of the videos and ask. I'll tell you how, or make a video about it. It's not hard to do this stuff. If you have the right tools, this stuff it's like putting a puzzle together. But once you do it a few times, or hopefully not a few times, you start getting a lot better at it. It's like anything. If you cut a tree down your whole life, you're going to be the best damn person in the world at cutting trees down, you know? So everybody's got their own questions, and sometimes it's easier to figure it out by yourself, especially when people are charging outrageous amounts to do this stuff. I can pull one of these motors out of a bike in probably an hour and a half, if that. It's literally, I got it down to a science now. You can put them back in probably like 2 hours. Your first time, if you have questions on any of that, I can help you out, save you a lot of time, because there's a lot of things you can not do that'll save you a lot of times to pull this out and put another one back in. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the live stream. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and have a wonderful Sunday.